This week in show history, 3 years ago this week, it's amazing to me that it has already been 3 years. Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, passed away at the age of 56. At the time, we talked about Apple's legacy, we talked about Steve Jobs' legacy, and we couldn't avoid also talking about the labor issues surrounding Apple, including the coverage from some of Foxconn, this big factory overseas in China that creates and manufactures a lot of Apple products. And it kind of, for a lot of people, Lewis, was the first glimpse into how these products were made, where they came from, and some of the working conditions.
And it was a real eye opener, wasn't it? I mean, I knew things were bad over there, but this was an eye opener for me as well, especially when you hear about how many of their employees were committing suicide on what seemed like a regular basis.
And it doesn't really seem that the coverage of those factories changed much of anything. Apple is still huge, in spite of the fact that their iPhones seem to be playing catch up with Samsung devices. And we now have, 3 years down the line, we have the iPhone 6 and the iPhone 6 Plus. I wonder, as expensive as those devices are, would Americans be willing to pay more to know that those devices were being produced in conditions that were not guilt-inducing? I wonder if Americans would be willing to pay even more for their Apple or other devices. This is not just an Apple issue.
It's hard to say. I think the cost would be significantly more. And you know what? I think that would annoy Americans. I think it's easier just to ignore what's happening overseas.
Would Americans be more okay? Well, let me take a step back. Most Americans already don't know or care about the tax breaks and loopholes that these big companies get, often reducing their tax liability to effectively zero. I wonder if we would be more okay, those of us who are enraged by that, with companies getting these tax breaks and loopholes and deductions if they were producing their electronics in ways that were more sustainable and moral. I know it would certainly make at least somewhat of a difference for me, although I still wouldn't think that they deserve to pay no taxes.
That would be nice. I mean, if you consider how many jobs this country could have if outsourcing were not an issue, we're talking hundreds of thousands, maybe more. It would have such a huge impact on our country.